Incredible rescue. 70-year-old man exposes the hidden love for a freezing kitten cub in Siberia. The early morning light sliced through the frost-covered window, illuminating the stark emptiness of Jack Hargrove's home. At 70, he found himself in a silence so profound it felt almost suffocating. A heavy weight pressed against his chest as memories of laughter and warmth echoed off the bare walls. The absence of his beloved wife hung like a shroud in the air, making every corner of the house feel like a mausoleum for their shared moments. Christmas had been their time. Family gatherings filled with joy now only illustrated the void between him and the world. The chatter, the warmth, the familiar smell of cinnamon and pine were replaced by an icy stillness that gnawed at his soul. At the animal shelter, the chirps and barks provided a timid, heartwarming contrast to his home. Yet, despite the busy whir of activity around him, a deeper loneliness lingered. He found comfort in the care of abandoned pets, losing himself in the routine of daily responsibilities. But beneath his smile lay a churning unease, a persistent ache that stirred within him, exhaling shadows of his unintentional estrangement from his family, particularly Emma, his granddaughter. The irony was not lost on him. He had devoted his life to healing others, yet struggled with the fractures in his own family ties. As he cleaned the cages one morning, whispers among the staff cut through his thoughts, igniting a forgotten passion. A rare Siberian kitten cub, ensnared in an illegal fur trap miles away, needed saving. The urgency of its plight pulled at him, reigniting memories of the conservation efforts he once shared with his wife. But in confronting the urge to act, doubt rattled through his mind. The biting cold could easily turn fatal, yet the thought of that poor creature alone, suffering in a trap, filled him with guilt. It felt wrong to let it perish mere miles away, yet here he was, silently wrestling between his fear of the elements and the desperate desire to save. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The decision twisted inside him much like the frigid gusts whipping through the town. His body ached with age, yet part of him thrived at the thought of adventure, risking it all against the elements that had deemed him frail. What if it was too late? What if he failed and put himself in danger for nothing? His racing thoughts pounded against his forehead, each worry crashing into the next, leaving a trail of anxiety that threatened to drown him. And there was Emma, estranged and burdened by her studies. Would she even come? It gnawed at him, the painful reminder of their distant relationship, a chasm that seemed insurmountable. Standing alone on the edge of desperation, Jack's heart clenched. He didn't know if this mission would resurrect his family ties or bury him deeper in loneliness. Wrought with conflicting emotions, he clenched his fists, wrestling with the paradox of his resolve. As he prepared mentally for the undertaking, doubt whispered sinister thoughts, each nagging uncertainty holding him back from making the call that could change everything. Would he truly become one with the winter wilderness, or was this venture destined to fail, sealing their bond in ice? The air was heavy with tension, and as Jack exhaled, he felt the impending storm of anguish rise around him. In that frozen moment, he grasped for what had once felt certain: love and purpose. Every day stretched like a taut string, the urgency of Jack's thoughts dissected by the cold reality surrounding him. Yet, despite the biting chill of winter encircling the town, a warmth began to ignite within him. The image of the trapped Siberian kitten clawed its way to the forefront of his mind, dissolving the layers of indecision. Jack knew he couldn't simply ignore its plight. This poor creature, isolated and terrified, echoed his own feelings of desolation, both of them prisoners of circumstances beyond their control. With every breath, he could almost feel that icy wind whispering encouragement. The wildness of nature called to him, inviting him to reclaim his identity. An advocate for the innocent, a healer of wounds, both physical and emotional. The decision weighed heavily upon him, but amidst the turmoil, clarity unfurled. The mission could serve more than just a purpose. It was a chance at redemption, a means of rewriting the narrative he had allowed to darken into silence. Jack's mind danced between the realities of the rescue and the specter of his fractured family ties. The tension swirled as he thought of Emma, each thought conjuring memories of laughter and light, of moments that had faded into misunderstanding. The window of opportunity was narrowing, both for the kitten and for the chance to reach out to her. Would this endeavor be the bridge that pulled them from the chasm of distance? With every heartbeat, the urgency grew, locking his resolve like a steel trap. Grabbing his worn leather jacket and tugging it tightly around him, Jack felt the smooth fabric almost vibrate with a sense of defiance against the looming cold. He stepped outside, the gusts swirling leaves and snow in a chaotic dance. This was no longer simply a chance for rescue. It was a call to action, a rekindling of purpose that he had long pushed aside in the comfort of his solitude. The truck rattled along the icy roads, Jack's heart thumping in rhythm with the chugging engine. He steeled himself against the nagging fear. Each mile brought him closer to the unknown. What if he faltered? The weight of self-doubt settled alongside the anticipation within him, dragging at his spirit. As he drove, memories flooded his mind. The conservation efforts he had led, the trips to distant wildlife refuges with his wife crammed in the passenger seat, the bemused laughter they shared when their plans went awry. What had been a source of joy soon transmogrified into a crucible of regret. Jack questioned whether he had let his grief paralyze his life, handing the reins of his existence over to despair. A tightening in his chest rekindled a flame of determination. The echoes of their laughter cracked through the fog of sorrow. If he could bring life back to this kitten, then perhaps he could also breathe life back into his connection with Emma. Perhaps she would see the man he had once been, the passionate protector of precious lives, bursting with tales of hope. But would she even want to be a part of that? His thoughts collided with the specter of their last argument, a bitter reminder of walls built high and thick. Arriving at the shelter of the trap's location, Jack exited the vehicle and inhaled deeply, aware of the weight of the moment. He was teetering on the brink of all he'd let slip away. The deep forest loomed around him like a timeless sentry, challenge and beauty entwined. But the wind howled, and it was a reminder of the potential for failure. Tension coiled within him. He could either retreat into the comfort of unresolved sadness or leap into the fray and risk everything for something that mattered deeply. Each step forward felt monumental, yet a shadow of doubt whispered to him, urging caution. In the heart of nature's daunting embrace, Jack took a hesitant step forward, a sense of newfound boldness rising within. He thought of that helpless creature, alone in the wilderness, then heard a barely perceptible mewl echo in the distance. The whispers of his own fears faded momentarily, and he was consumed by a singular purpose. But then, as he approached the direction of the sound, another noise broke the stillness. A crack of branches, followed by a chilling growl, sending a shiver that transcended the cold. The moment had arrived, and the stakes were suddenly higher than he ever anticipated. What would he face deep in the wilderness? Jack paused, heart pounding, as he processed the chilling growl that reverberated through the trees surrounding him. Adrenaline flooded his veins, contrasting sharply with the icy tendrils of fear beginning to creep in. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, but something deeper urged him to stand his ground. This moment felt pivotal. He could either let the weight of the unknown crush him or find strength in it, the very essence of his journey toward redemption. Drawing a steadying breath, Jack slowly scanned the area, searching for any signs of the source of that growl. The innocence of the kitten was overshadowed by this new threat, a reminder that in his pursuit to save one life, he might have to confront something far more dangerous. The growl echoed again, primal and low, sending another shiver through him. His mind raced. Was it a wild animal? A rival predator threatening the kitten? The thought ignited a flicker of defiance within him. For far too long, he had allowed fear to dictate his actions, to trap him in a cycle of avoidance. But here, with something or someone's life hanging in the balance, he needed to confront not just the external threat, but also the internal one that had kept him paralyzed with indecision for far too long. Jack tightened his grip on the flashlight he had brought along, its beam slicing through the darkness ahead. illuminating the thick underbrush where the sound had emerged. He took cautious steps forward, each footfall a statement of resolve. He had faced challenges before. He needed to remind himself of that strength. Then he heard the mule again, clearer this time, mingling distressingly with the menacing growl. It felt like a call to arms, an unspoken bond woven between him and the innocent creature that mirrored his own struggles, a plea for help that he could not ignore. He wrestled with inner conflict as he considered the possible consequences of approaching whatever lurked ahead. But the idea of retreating felt foreign, too reminiscent of the version of himself that lost touch with purpose. This kitten needed him. He needed this. Another growl rumbled through the trees, and Jack's heart quickened. His next steps were going to define his journey. He could step back into the shadows or advance into the unknown light of opportunity. He chose the latter, his heart now settled with grim determination. As he pushed forward, drawing closer to the source of both the kitten's cries and the growling, Jack felt clarity blazing in his mind. He had been wallowing for too long, assuming he was undeserving of change. Redemption wasn't just a nebulous concept. It was tangible, right in front of him, even if it daily threatened to slip away with every moment of doubt he had. Finally, he broke through a thicket and spotted it. The kitten huddled against a tree trunk was trembling, but just beyond it stood a larger creature, a wild dog, teeth bared and stance fierce. The chill of the space seemed to shrink around him as Jack assessed the scene. Would he need to fight? His instinct screamed for him to act, to protect, to intervene. The air crackled with danger. Was he strong enough to confront this animal? The thought widened his eyes with panic, but it was quickly replaced by a steely resolve. He couldn't falter, for the kitten, for Emma. In that moment, the focus on the growling dog crystallized into a singular thought. He would no longer be a prisoner of circumstance. The time had come to face not just the physical threat before him, but the remnants of fear that had haunted him for years. With his heart racing and the beam of his flashlight honing in, Jack took a step forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. What would be the price of bravery in this unforgiving wilderness? Jack's foot crunched on a twig as he advanced, the sound jolting him into a heightened awareness of his surroundings. The wild dog's growl became more pronounced, vibrating through him like a drum roll that heralded the uncertainty ahead. In that charged moment, he confronted the duality of his situation. He was both the terrified man clutching a flashlight and the protector willing to shield a vulnerable life from danger. The scene before him was surreal. The wild dog, muscular and poised, embodied instinct and survival. Its sharp gaze locked onto Jack, sizing him up as a potential threat. Jack felt a churning in his stomach, a tumult of self-doubt crashing against a burgeoning sense of purpose. A part of him wanted to flee, retreat into the safety of the familiar. But beneath that roiling uncertainty was an urgency, a calling that resonated deeper than fear. "Focus," he whispered to himself, channeling the mantra he had rehearsed countless times. This wasn't just about saving the kitten. It was a test of his resolve, a challenge that mirrored every hesitation he had faced in his life. With a decisive breath, Jack raised the flashlight. Its beam like a sword of light cut through the darkness. The wild dog snorted, its muscles twitching as if it were debating its next move. Jack mentally steeled himself, aware that hesitation could be lethal. The lost moments from his past loomed heavy, ghosts reminding him of each time he had stepped back instead of stepping forward. Not this time, he thought fiercely, summoning the courage he had long thought faded. He positioned himself between the dog and the kitten, an unyielding barrier forged out of sheer will. The kitten looked small and helpless, its wide eyes filled with confusion. Jack knelt, grounding his voice to something soothing. "Hey there, little one. You're going to be okay." The wild dog barked sharply, challenging him. Jack could feel the primal energy pulsing in the air. This was no longer just about the kitten. It was about seizing control of his life, reclaiming the narrative that had hindered his choices. He had spent too many years paralyzed by fear, letting it dictate his worthiness. Now he was here, on this unyielding ground with a choice to fight. "Stay calm, Jack," he instructed himself, holding the flashlight steady while maintaining eye contact with the dog. The creature seemed startled for a moment, as if he were calling its bluff. Fear may have been instinctual, but so was the necessity to protect, something every creature understood. "What are you?" Jack's brain raced as he thought back to childhood lessons about wildlife behavior. Assessing body language, recognizing fear, and confronting aggression. He had read about these concepts in books, engaged in discussions over them, but had never before applied them with such high stakes. As he took a slow step forward, the flashlight yielded a twist of decision-making. Every ounce of his past decisions felt condensed into this singular moment. If he failed here, it would resonate as another notch in his life of avoidance, something he could no longer abide. The growl softened, the wild dog's posture shifted ever so slightly, registering something in Jack's stance, perhaps the resolve that came with the acknowledgement of inner strength. This was the moment. The air shimmered with possibility, waiting for him to seize it. Jack held firm, whispering to the kitten, and the wild dog watched, curious and tense. The outcome hung in a delicate balance, as unpredictable as life itself. He would do whatever it took to protect the fragile life before him, as fragile as his own journey toward redemption. He could feel a transformation surging within him, the dawning of self-awareness. A belief was rising that he was worthy of courage. As he took another step forward, anticipating the next move, Jack felt the pulse of destiny in the very air around him. The confrontation with the dog, swirling with both fear and necessity, was a catalyst, and he wouldn't back down now. Yet even as he prepared for the next encounter, he found himself questioning what else he needed to confront. The wild dog was just the beginning. What lay beyond this confrontation? The ground beneath him shifted slightly, unsettling the certainty he had just unearthed. What other monsters, within and without, waited to test his newfound resolve? Jack's heart raced, not solely from adrenaline but from the realization that his moment of truth was not just about the dog or the kitten. It was about himself. The wild dog, muscles coiling like springs, took a step forward, challenging him in a dance of primal instincts. Jack grappled with every instinct urging him to flee or to fight. Yet the shimmering opportunity unfolding before him was a mirror, reflecting all the moments he had shied away from, whether in a job interview where he had hesitated to advocate for himself, or in friendships where his silent longing for connection had once been suffocated by insecurities. "Stand your ground," his mind commanded. He was aware that he was more than a passive observer. He was part of the story. He focused on the tiny kitten, sensing its vulnerability beneath the shadow of towering fear. The wild dog's barks echoed through the night, and as they rumbled around him, Jack felt the challenge crystallizing. This was not merely a confrontation over territory, but a clash of beliefs. His conviction that kindness matters against the harsh instinct of survival. Here, his personal development collided head-on with the forces of his past. "Why are you scared?" he asked himself, embracing the question as he tightened his grip on the flashlight. The fear of the wild dog reawakened his own childhood fears. Fears of failing, of being unworthy, of losing himself amidst life's unpredictability. With a deep breath steeped in newfound determination, he recalled moments from his journey where he had both succeeded and stumbled. The dog was fierce, but Jack's resolve surged forth. "It's just a creature navigating its instincts, just like me," he thought. Understanding this fostered empathy and softened his fear, propelling him forward as he raised the flashlight high, its beam acting like a lighthouse in a raging storm. "Hey, back off!" he shouted, his voice steadier than he felt. To his surprise, the words echoed with a conviction grounded in his expanding self-awareness. The wild dog paused, its growl shifting to a cautious whine. Jack wasn't merely protecting a kitten anymore. He was confronting the fear of his inadequacies, the belief that he could not stand firm in the face of challenges. His life, previously defined by avoidance, took on new dimensions as he acknowledged the lurking fears of failure, rejection, and pain that had consumed him. He felt an urge to reach out to the wild dog, to connect beneath the surface of aggression. "We both want something, don't we? You're looking for security. I'm looking for purpose," he articulated, speaking louder than the growl of the dog. Jack took another calculated step forward, allowing more light to filter through the darkness. The beast shifted again, scrutinizing Jack with a mixture of bewilderment and caution. He sensed its heartbeat matched his own, a rhythm intertwined through the common struggle of existence. Then it hit him, the revelation jolting through his consciousness like lightning. This encounter was a reflection of every time he had walked away from facing his fears. Each aggressive bark was a reminder of the stakes he had glossed over. Each inch he stepped closer to the dog symbolized a step toward embracing discomfort within himself. What he saw reflected in the wild dog's eyes was not merely a threat, but a call for understanding. "What am I doing?" he thought, standing at the precipice of change. With clarity birthed from confrontation, he realized that in stepping between the dog and the kitten, he was metaphorically stepping between his old self and the man he aspired to become. The energy crackled, thick with potential, as Jack locked eyes with the dog again. There was an urgency to act, a chance to reshape not just the immediate outcome, but his entire narrative. "Will you let me in?" he questioned, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down hard on his chest. Yet before Jack could make another move, a rustling noise from the underbrush caught his attention, drawing the wild dog's focus and setting the stage for an unforeseen twist. What, or who, would emerge from the shadows, forcing Jack to confront yet another layer of his growing transformation? The rustling in the underbrush escalated the tension, each crunch of leaves amplifying Jack's heartbeat. The wild dog snapped its head toward the sound, distraction flickering across its fierce visage. Jack used this moment, fueled by adrenaline and purpose, to consider his next step carefully. Fear and resolve danced within him. Out of the shadows stepped an elderly man, bent with age but with eyes sharp and resolute. He carried an old leather satchel slung over his shoulder, appearing unperturbed by the standoff before him. Jack's instinct screamed for caution, yet the man's presence felt like a sliver of calm amidst chaos. This was more than an unexpected encounter. It was a potential ally. "Stay back," Jack warned, keeping himself poised between the dog and the kitten. His heart raced not only from fear, but from the strange urgency to protect both the vulnerable animal and his newfound sense of self-worth. The old man raised a hand, both a gesture of peace and a signal of understanding. "I've seen many situations like this," he said softly, his voice soothing like a breeze in the heat of summer. "It doesn't have to end in violence." Jack's eyes darted between the man and the wild dog. Every ounce of his being questioned the man's motives, yet a deeper instinct urged him to listen. "How can you say that?" Jack shot back, frustration cracking his voice like brittle glass. "This dog is a threat." "Nobody wants to be a threat," the man replied, unfazed by Jack's aggression. "Every creature has its story, and every act is born from fear. You just need to be willing to read between the lines." The truth in those words struck Jack like a hammer to glass. He had spent years avoiding confrontation, assuming his job interviews or friendships could be navigated without deeper engagement. But here, standing in the dark, he finally faced his own narrative, one he had written with reluctance and uncertainty. "I can't just let it go," Jack challenged, feeling more emboldened yet still afraid of what he might do next. "What if it attacks?" "Then you stand firm," the old man replied, eyes gleaming with an inner light. "But you won't know, unless you try to understand." The wild dog had shifted again, its growls less aggressive, hesitant. Jack's grip on the flashlight remained firm, but with the man's words echoing in his mind, he felt the steady thrum of connection pulsing in the air. Could he really find a way through this conflict without it ending in violence? Jack took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air, mulling over his own uncertainties and the stories written by fear. He slowly lowered the flashlight, aiming its beam lower, indicating a willingness to turn down the fight. "Okay," he said, voice calmer now. "I'm willing to listen, but I need your help." The old man nodded, a soft smile creeping across his face. "First, we need to establish boundaries. The dog needs to know you're not a threat. The kitten needs to feel safe. All it takes is a moment of trust." In that instant, Jack understood that the transformation he sought was not just about standing firm against external challenges, but was fundamentally about creating pathways of understanding, both within himself and with the world around him. He turned back towards the wild dog, its ears now perked with a different energy, curiosity mingling with uncertainty. Jack felt the tension shift in the atmosphere, and as he focused on the heartbeat of the wild creature before him, he recognized the latent power of vulnerability. "Come on, boy," Jack whispered, embodying the empathy he had just uncovered. "You don't need to fight. We can do this together." But just as the wild dog's posture began to relax and the tension started to ebb, another sudden rustle from behind startled them all. Jack's heart dropped. He wasn't ready for more chaos. He had just begun to navigate the complexities of this moment. What new threat lay concealed within the shadows, and would it force Jack to confront yet another layer of his evolving identity? Before Jack could process the disturbance behind him, a dark figure lunged from the tree line. Instinct kicked in. He instinctively raised the flashlight, its beam slicing through the night, illuminating a tall man with a wild beard and tattered clothes, brandishing a stick. "What do you think you're doing?" the intruder shouted, glaring at Jack and the elderly man. The wild dog reacted, retreating slightly, its instincts flaring anew. Jack's heart sprang to life again, the fear of aggression almost drowning out the calm he had just found. "Please," the old man spoke, his voice steady and resonant, like a sturdy oak in a storm. "This is a peaceful moment. A simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" The stranger scoffed, eyes narrowing as he sized them up. "You're protecting a helpless kitten? You've got a wild dog at your feet. What are you thinking, old man?" Jack's mind raced. This was more than a simple encounter with nature. It was a reflection of his own struggles about being seen, being heard, and being safe. The anger simmering in the stranger brought forth a terrible craving for validation. Would he succumb to conflict once more? "Stop!" Jack interrupted, his voice louder, more commanding than he anticipated. "This isn't worth fighting over." The hidden strengths he had unearthed during his moment of connection with the dog swelled within him, fighting against the urge to retreat. Taking a half step towards the stranger, he felt both anxiety and resolve wash over him. "What's your name?" he probed, hoping to humanize the confrontation. "Riley," the man replied, lowering the stick slightly as he studied Jack's face. "Riley," Jack repeated, trying the name out for size, reconciling the rage and fear radiating from the man. "Listen, I get it. You're worried about what's going on here. But the dog is just scared, and so is the kitten. There is enough fear to go around, but we don't have to escalate things." Riley seemed to falter for a beat, his expression softening, then hardening again. "Spare me the lectures. You don't know the first thing about surviving out here." Jack knew that beneath Riley's jagged edges lay a person shaped by struggle. Perhaps, too, he recognized a kindred spirit entangled in a web of their own fears. "I may not know about survival in these woods," Jack admitted, "but I've fought my own battles, and I'm learning just like you. I'm here to protect that kitten and I won't let you harm it. But I also don't want this to turn violent." He could feel the wild dog watching him, sensing the shift's intention, as if it were gauging Jack's boldness against the volatility of Riley. "A peaceful resolution," the old man interjected, shifting his satchel, an unyielding symbol of wisdom, for emphasis. "We don't need to prove our strength with force. Strength is about acknowledging fear and finding common ground." Jack saw this as a moment, the first test of his growing resolve. It was not just about managing the external conflict before him. It was about transforming himself in the process. "If you're struggling to find what you need," he added, "maybe we can help each other instead." Jack realized he was at a crossroads. Would he take a chance on creating trust out of fear, or would the echo of conflict consume him once again? The urgency of the situation closed in on him, the tension beckoning a decisive response. The silence enveloping them felt thick, while Jack began to wonder if Riley's hesitation held an opening for connection. What if he could forge a new path in a world defined by conflict? The wild dog, suddenly intrigued by Jack's words, took a cautious step forward, inching closer, not out of submissiveness, but in a way that suggested understanding. Jack hoped it could sense the evolution unfolding within him. "Let's start fresh," he urged, bridging the gap. "Maybe you can tell us why you're out here." But just as Riley opened his mouth to respond, another rustle erupted from the nearby bushes, and Jack's heart raced anew. Would this fresh encounter unlock the shadows of his identity, or would it extinguish the light he had just begun to nurture? The rustling in the underbrush echoed loudly in Jack's mind, each crack of a twig amplifying his pulse. He locked eyes with Riley, a silent understanding passing between them. Both men were standing at the brink of something larger than themselves. In this moment of collective uncertainty, Jack realized that his voice could be a lifeline. "Riley," he pressed, his tone far steadier than his pulse suggested. "We can handle this together. Let's focus on what's in front of us, the danger to the kitten, not to us." Riley still gripped his stick tightly, but his tension seemed to waver slightly at Jack's insistence. Jack took a chance, stepping closer, positioning himself between Riley and the old man. "None of us want conflict, do we? We're here to protect. What you fear and what I fear, they're not so different." The wild dog, sensing the shift, approached Riley with a low growl in its throat, an ancient instinct surfacing, alerting its intuition to the elemental shift in atmosphere. Jack knew instinctively that the dog could sense human emotions and intentions. He kept his eyes fixed on Riley, trying to will calmness into the scuffed exterior of the man before him. Riley's posture flagged a few degrees, and just as Jack thought he might break through, the underbrush burst into chaotic movement. A second figure leapt from the shadows, a small child, wild-eyed and panting, disheveled hair brushing against her soot-streaked cheeks. "Dad!" she cried, the desperation in her voice slicing through the night's tension. Riley's face transformed, the anger melting into panic. It was all too quick. Jack watched as the man's guard dropped, his weapon falling slack to his side. The boy's presence softened the rough edges of their confrontation, shifting the gravity around them. The night air filled with an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the dulcet cries of a kitten escaping the unfolding chaos. In that frantic moment of vulnerability, Jack felt an internal shift. He had faced aggression, fear, and the unknown. But here was a different battle, one that lay hidden in the depths of webbed familial connections. "Riley, she needs you. If you're willing to let go of this for a moment, we can help each other." The wild dog and the girl had drawn closer now, forming a quartet of muted tension. Jack sensed the potential for a connection that might yield a new understanding, one that transcended fear and anger. Might it even bridge the chasm dividing them? Riley remained still, a statue grappling with the weight of decisions forged by years of survival training. Jack knew that within Riley's hardened exterior lay layers of unrecognized pain and vulnerability. "It's okay," Jack reassured, his voice dropping to a soothing pitch. "We won't harm you or your child. Everything is okay right now." Yet, even as Jack spoke reassuringly, he could almost feel his own heart slamming against his ribcage, riddled with uncertainty. Would this delicate fabric of newfound respect stretch or unravel with a sudden lurch? Riley's eyes flickered vaguely toward the tableau of Jack, the old man, the wild dog, and his daughter, their lives overlapping in this isolated moment. What choices would he make now, and how might they redefine their realities? This was no longer just about the tensions of surviving in the wilderness. It was about dispelling the shadows that loomed within each one of them. A heaviness hung in the air, thick and palpable, as fearless and fearsome as the night. Jack could feel momentum building within him, a quiet resolve whispering that now was the time to bridge the gap. As all awaited Riley's reaction, Jack prepared himself for whatever came next. The crossroads had appeared, but clarity eluded him. How could he facilitate this fragile connection and diffuse the night's looming danger without understanding Riley fully? The wind rustled the leaves above as if urging him to act, to confront the uncertainty. This was the moment where his growth would be tested, and he yearned to prove himself worthy, not just of the shared experience, but of the role he sought in the world. Riley's lips parted, a sound teetering on the precipice of release, when yet another rustle sent shivers through the clearing. Would Jack find the courage to embrace this moment, or would the darkness reclaim what was just beginning to flourish? Riley's breath caught as he processed the frantic rush of stimuli. His child, the kitten, the looming threat of the wild dog, and Jack's steady presence. Jack sensed the weight of the moment pressing down on all of them, the tension thick enough to choke the air, revealing the fractures beneath Riley's hard exterior. "Riley," Jack tried again, clearer this time. "The kitten can't take care of itself. We need a united front to protect it. And each other." His words hung like a lifeboat tossed in a stormy sea, and he hoped Riley would seize onto them. Still, Riley stood frozen, the internal battle visible in the taut lines of his face. For Jack, time began to twist, elongating the moment as if they were stuck in some liminal space. The wild dog's growls reverberated, a constant reminder of the danger that lingered in the shadows. Then, Riley's expression shifted. Jack could see the rapid flicker of emotions crossing his face. Confusion, regret, desperation. With an abruptness that startled Jack, Riley dropped his stick completely, his shoulders sagging as if a weight had lifted. The tension surrounding them seemed to exhale, especially as he finally turned his full attention to his daughter. "Come here, sweetheart," he called, his voice shaky but softer. The child darted forward, relief flooding her small frame as she reached up for him. Jack watched the fragile connection blossom between them, the fierce love of a father re-emerging amid the chaos. It was an unexpected pivot, illuminating the path ahead. As the girl enveloped Riley in a tight embrace, Jack felt another surge of determination. This was the thread he needed to grasp. Unity, established from understanding and connection, could lead them away from conflict and into safety. He glanced toward the old man, still lurking in the shadows, unsure and dangerous, but nevertheless human. "Let's work together," Jack offered, his voice now a blend of command and warmth. "But we need to focus on what matters, the kitten's safety and your daughter." Every word became imbued with a quiet authority as he stood firm. Riley's posture softened further, but Jack still sensed an undertow of uncertainty. It was clear that both men were navigating through their own storms, past traumas, and regrets swirling just beneath the surface. As Jack moved closer to the wild dog, whose growling had lowered to an intermittent warning bark, he realized they were all caught in a delicate web of survival, fear, and vulnerability. "Riley, can we coax the dog away? We'd have a better chance if we separated it from the kitten. Together." Jack's heart pounded. He could feel time slipping through his fingers. The kitten's desperate mewling was a siren song pushing him forward. Riley blinked, coming back to the present. Jack detected a flicker of recognition in Riley's eyes, a flash of understanding that perhaps they were in this fight for life together after all. With newfound resolve, Riley positioned himself beside Jack. They looked at each other, not as adversaries or strangers, but as allies united by circumstance. "Okay," he whispered hoarsely, nodding toward the wild dog. "What's the plan?" Jack took a breath, grounding himself amidst the tumult of emotions. This was his chance to lead, to assert not just his role in this unfolding narrative, but to reclaim his own identity as someone capable of fostering change. "We approach slowly. If we can distract the dog, we might even get it to back off." As they prepared to execute their plan, Jack felt a glimmer of hope, an acceptance that transformation came through willingness, through facing not just external threats, but the demons lurking within. But the night was still fraught with danger, and just as they took their first cautious steps toward the growling creature, the sound of approaching footsteps disrupted their careful orchestration. Jack's heart sank. The night had more surprises hidden deep within its shadows. What would come next? The footsteps grew louder, an unmistakable herald of change, challenging the tenuous alliance Jack had forged with Riley. Heart pounding, Jack turned, expecting to see another threat emerge. Instead, a familiar silhouette broke through the dark. Emma, his granddaughter. Her cheeks flushed with the winter wind and worry etched across her features. "Grandpa, I saw your truck and was so worried," she gasped, breathless and wide-eyed, glancing quickly between the wild dog, the kitten, Riley, and the old man, still lurking in shadows. In her presence, the tension shifted, wrapping around them like a protective blanket. Jack felt a rush of pride, a sense of clarity washing over him as Emma's concerned gaze locked onto him. "Emma," he said, his voice steadier than he had expected. "I'm in the middle of—" He hesitated, the weight of his past words and actions crashing around him. "But I need you here. We're trying to save this kitten." Riley shifted slightly, caught off guard by Emma's sudden appearance. But Jack saw something shift within him, a new layer of awareness emerging as Riley's fear tangled with confusion about protecting his little girl. "Dad, what are you doing? You shouldn't be here," Emma chided, her worry framing her words as she swept closer to Jack, protective instincts flaring. "I know, sweetheart. But this is about more than just this kitten now," he replied, the urgency of his words swirling with the unmistakable truth they embodied. "It's about rebuilding what was lost. Connection, understanding, all of it." Emma's brow furrowed, catching the flicker of transformation within Jack and the vulnerability coursing through Riley. "You can't act recklessly. Please let me help," she said, finally understanding the stakes involved. Jack felt a tug within his chest. Together, they could create a pathway back to each other. His hand extended to the girl who grounded him and the man who represented a challenging, yet transformative encounter. If they could unite under a common cause, perhaps they could reclaim their stories. "Riley," he urged gently, casting a glance at the wild dog whose stance hadn't yet shifted. "We need to work together. All of us." He gestured toward Emma and the old man, the growing circle of life around the intense moment of potential loss. Riley met Jack's gaze, clarity beginning to dawn in his eyes. "Okay," he said, his voice a hesitant murmur before stealing. "We'll distract it together, but I need to reach my daughter." Jack nodded, feeling a new confidence surge forward. "Emma," he spoke softly, "I know this is scary, but we can do this. Can you keep an eye on the kitten?" Emma nodded, resolve mixing with apprehension as she carefully approached the trembling creature. Jack watched her, recognizing the light she carried that mirrored his own deep yearning to heal. The wild dog watched her closely, torn between instinct and an emerging reality that it was outmanned. As Riley and Jack prepared to step forward, ready to confront the growling dog, they began with slow movements. No sudden bursts, just deliberate actions echoing their promise of unity. Emma knelt beside the kitten, whispering softly, while the old man remained ready to act as a mediator if necessary. Just as they approached, the tension swirled in the air, the instinctual growl of the dog diminishing as it sensed the power of their collective action. "Easy does it," Jack implored, his voice steady despite the fear that edged his thoughts. With every cautious step taken, the divine shift vibrated within Jack as he felt the lightness of fear's grip slide off his shoulders. The audacity bore fruit. Courage born from connection cultivated a crystal-clear understanding of their shared vulnerability. It happened in an instant. Emma, signaling subtle movements to the kitten, coaxed it into her lap, her warmth encasing the tiny creature. Jack held steady, allowing Riley to bridge the final gap between them and the wild dog. The instinctual growl turned hesitant, uncertainty muddying the once defiant stance. Jack could see Riley's face morph, fear melting into acceptance as he acknowledged the larger question of survival that had loomed constantly over his decisions. "This dog wants something," Jack asserted quietly. "Let's shift the narrative. Maybe it's scared too." With a hand raised high, signaling a tranquil offering, Jack breathed deeply to calm himself, channeling every ounce of love he wished to share, every moment he had once held dear. The wild dog slowly melted into stillness, retreating as Jack stepped back, inviting the air of trust to settle around them. The simple gesture opened a pathway. Riley, bolstered by the strength displayed by Jack, snapped into direct action, easing his stance and inviting the wild dog back through the darkness. All at once, as if choreographed by a force greater than them, the wild dog took a step back, an unexpected measure of understanding glimmering within its eyes, revealing its own fears, showing that even it longed for safety and acceptance. Emma glanced sidelong at Jack, her eyes wide, brimming with understanding and a fierce light of pride. "We did it!" she squealed, clutching the kitten closer. Jack became aware of a shift, an evolving connection fueling the fragile equilibrium forged that night. He turned to Riley, who now knelt beside them, a newfound respect swelling in his chest. "Thank you," Riley whispered, his eyes shining with a glimpse of vulnerability. "For showing me there's more beyond surviving. I want to do better." And in that shared moment of authenticity, threaded with respect and the promise of new beginnings, Jack realized he had stepped beyond the panoramic view of his fears. He was no longer a prisoner of his own isolation. A triumphant warmth blossomed in Jack's heart as he recognized the profound changes woven throughout their lives. They had turned pieces of fear and desperation into the beginnings of hope and connection. In that wilderness with the weight of the past falling away, Jack Hargrove emerged renewed, transforming not just in relationship to the wild dog and the kitten, but profoundly with Emma and within himself. The night felt lighter now, shimmering with a promise of a reclaimed narrative, a frontier of closeness once thought lost. As they stood together, Jack, Emma, Riley, and the old man, they symbolized something greater than mere survival. They embodied the heart of human connection, bridging the chasms created by fear, loneliness, and the passage of time. They walked back together, united by purpose, turning challenges into a tapestry woven with threads of trust and understanding, shining lights against the darkness of the world around them. Their journey was only just beginning, but Jack knew now that whatever awaited them, they would face it together, emboldened by everything they had fought for that night. So what will be your next step toward courage? The journey of a lifetime awaits. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this conclusion, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now for the best of personal overcoming stories.